everyone. I am Sean, and welcome once again to my Horror Corner. Today, we're going to be talking about a movie that I really haven't heard a lot of people say good things about, and I'll kind of come back to that later on. But we're going to be talking about The Woman in the Yard, released earlier this year. I went and saw this movie in theaters. I watched it again just a couple of days ago on Max, I believe, is where this movie is streaming. And yeah, so we'll talk about The Woman in the Yard. I'll get into my thoughts on it. And there's something about this movie that surprises me a little bit. But there's something about this movie that also speaks to me a little bit. And we'll get into all of that more towards the end of the film and in our review. Um, and just to kind of let you know, this mental health is a very big thing to me. We'll probably get into that a little bit about the end of this. I don't know exactly how this episode is going to go, but this could end up becoming a very serious episode by the end. We'll see. But yeah, so let me put my readers on and we will start talking about The Woman in the Yard. Quick overview for the film. Ramona becomes crippled by grief after her husband dies in a car accident, leaving her to care for her two children alone in her rural farmhouse. Her sadness soon turns to fear when a woman in black appears on her front lawn, warning her that today's the day. As the mysterious woman creeps closer and closer to the house, Ramona realizes she must protect her children from the evil woman who simply won't leave them alone. Film was released March 28th of 2025. I am going to butcher some names. I've told you before, if you've watched some of my other episodes, I'm not great with names. I'm probably really about to butcher some, and I apologize ahead of time. But directed by Jamie Colette Serra, written by Sam Stefanek, produced by Jason Blum and Stephanie Allen. Cinematography done by Powell Pogoretsky, possibly, I'm not sure. Music by Lauren Balfe. Distributed by Universal Pictures. Runtime of 87 minutes. $12 million budget, $23.3 million at the box office. Rotten Tomatoes scores 40% from critics, 47% from the audience, and has an IMDb rating of 5.1 out of 10. Cast for this film. I'm just going to mention a few names. Danielle Deadweiler as Ramona. Okay, here we go. This is going to be the hardest name to pronounce for me. Okiwa Oak. Hold on. Oak Paklawasti. I'm not sure. I am so sorry. As the woman in black. Russell Hornsby as David. Danielle's deceased husband. Peyton Jackson as Taylor. I said Danielle, Ramona's deceased husband. Peyton Jackson as Taylor, Ramona's son, and Estella Kahia as Annie, Ramona's daughter. Not a lot of behind the scenes things to mention for this film. The movie was written in 2020 and went on a annual list that comes out called the Blacklist, an annual list that comes out pretty much every year of the most liked unproduced screenplays for the year. The movie was filmed in Georgia, and critics felt the film almost seems like critics and audiences both felt the film got confusing and very overplotted at the end from a lot of things that I was reading. But let's get into the movie. Like I said, not a lot of behind the scenes things there for that film. So we're going to go ahead and get into the plot. Start going through it and talking about my thoughts on this film as we go. So, the introduction of the film, we do get Ramona. She's laying in bed, I believe, and it seems like she's talking with her husband, but we learn that there was a car accident and her husband passed away. And then we get a little bit of interaction with her children. We can tell that because of grief, that she's kind of distant with her children. We can tell they're having some financial difficulties. There doesn't seem to be a lot of food in the house. The electricity seems to be off. We also see, though, that she's very strict with the children. As far as the introduction to this film and the introduction to the characters, I think it's fine. Nothing really jumps out at me. I do really like in this movie Danielle Deadweiler's performance as Ramona. I'll talk a little bit more about that probably as we go on. But I think she gives a great performance. Everyone that's in this movie does fine. I like Peyton Jackson's performance as Taylor. The young actress that plays Annie, I like her performance, but I am really impressed with Danielle Deadweiler's performance in this film. I think she does an outstanding job, and really, I think her performance carries this film. overall. So yeah, but I mean, again, not a whole lot from the introduction here as far as anything that really jumps out. We're just kind of getting a brief look into the characters, and which is fine. But from there, we do see that this woman appears out in their front yard wearing black. I believe her son Taylor sees the woman first and points it out, and there's kind of some confusion, from them as to why she's there. Ramona goes out to speak to her, uh, to try to find out who she is, what she wants. They think that she might be, someone who has gotten out of a hospital, like a that was up the road a little bit, maybe someone that's just very sick, very ill, and needs some help. And so Ramona goes out. Concerned, but just kind of wanting to see what's going on and tries to have a conversation with her. And the woman starts claiming that today is the day. And, she also seems to know things about Ramona a little bit. Ramona comes back in and tries to, turn things around and basically doesn't really tell the children the truth about what's going on. Just, not wanting to scare them. Uh, does want to protect them and just kind of gives a different excuse as to why the woman's out there other than what really seems to be going on. um, we see that Taylor doesn't buy it. He wants to talk to the woman, and he wants to do something himself to get her off the yard. And here, really, we see more of the interaction between Ramona and her kids, where we just kind of get an idea of how on edge she is. She gets very angry with the kids very easily. Um, Sometimes, maybe for good reason. This Taylor kid definitely has an attitude. Um, but again, we see just how hard she is on the kid. She gets very angry about Taylor wanting to deal with things, and again, we've got a little bit of mystery set up as to why the woman is there. The interaction between the woman in black and Ramona, somewhat interesting. But again, I could see if someone thinks there's not a lot happening in this film, or early on they're kind of bored with this movie. I guess maybe I could see it. This is one of those instances, though, where I think the performance of the actors and actresses in the movie is so good that it's carrying the film, and again, especially Danielle Deadweiler's performance. And I think the movie does a good job of setting up just enough suspense in the early stages of the film to keep you intrigued, to keep you want to know, what exactly is going to happen. Where is this going to go? I remember watching this in the theater, and that's pretty much what I was thinking. Early on in this movie, and watching it as we go through the first half of the film, really, thinking that okay, this is not a bad movie. I want to know what's going to happen. Am I loving this? I wouldn't say that, but I was enjoying it, and I was hooked enough to know, that I wanted to know where this was going to go. There was enough suspense there and enough intrigue there that I did want more from the film. The woman in black continues to move closer and closer on the yard. We don't really see her moving. We just get different shots, and every time they look outside, she's moved closer to the house, still sitting in her chair, but moved closer to the house. We also have an instance where the dog is suddenly missing. We see kind of a shadow come over the dog. That's another area where we see Ramona getting very upset. The dog keeps barking because the stranger's in the yard, and she's getting very upset with the dog. But then the dog ends up going missing as well, and so we wonder what has happened to the dog. Um, Ramona continues to try to keep the kids away. There is a scene there where uh, Taylor does go out and interact with the woman a little bit. He's got a gun and he's threatening her, that she needs to get off the yard or he's going to shoot. But she kind of begins to drop some hints that maybe Ramona hasn't been honest with the children. And Taylor ends up being, pretty freaked out and going back inside. And again, we learn that Ramona has lied about the accident. She had led the children to believe that the father had actually been driving the car, and there had been a storm. They had been arguing a little bit about Ramona being unhappy in the relationship, and there was an accident, and he passed away. We find out, though, that it was actually Ramona who was driving the car. That yes, there had been a disagreement. Yes, they had been talking about, Ramona not being happy in the relationship, not being happy living where they were living, but she was the one driving the car in the accident that ended up killing the kid's dad. Um, Finally, we kind of get to a point in the film where Ramona seems to surrender to this woman in black, um, under the condition that the children won't be hurt. Uh, that she'll send the kids away, and then she'll do whatever this woman in black wants. And we find out that this woman in black is basically more of a manifestation of Ramona's psyche. Um, the woman in black at one point mentions to Ramona, "I'm here because you prayed for me," and we find out actually that Ramona. Early in the film, we see her, say, "Give me strength," and we're led at that point to believe that she's wanting strength just to get through another day. We actually discover that she's wanting the strength to go ahead and kill herself. That she feels like her children would be better off without her, and the grief and everything is just too much for her, and she's wanting the strength to kill herself. At one point, the woman in black mentions to her what, in my opinion, is a very powerful line in this film. She mentions to her that, "Don't you wish one time someone else could be strong and that you could take a break?" I think that's a very, very powerful line. And we find out that the woman in black is there to try to give Ramona the strength to kill herself, to go ahead and end her life and let her kids move on. Um, as we get towards the end here of this film, Ramona does send the kids away. She tells them goodbye. She wants them to walk to a neighbor's place, and then she ends up with a rifle. There's a scene. I got a little bit ahead of myself there. There is a pretty good scene in the attic where I think we get some good scares, and we start to see that this woman in black is not really there. Is but isn't. I mean, there are scenes where obviously she's there because the kids saw her, but there in the attic, we get scenes, kind of some scares here and there where Ramona and the kids are hiding in the attic or trying to hide in the attic. And the woman in black keeps creeping upon them and getting closer to them. It is in the attic at one point. But then we kind of get some shots that it is actually Ramona that is doing some of these things. It is a little bit confusing. I do see where people felt like the film could get a little confusing because there is some confusion there of, is the woman in black real or is she not? Obviously, she must be because the kids saw her earlier in the film, but now the movie's kind of giving the indication that it's Ramona, because again, this isn't just a manifestation of her psyche. So there is some confusion there, but again, she sends the children away. And she then goes with a rifle, and the woman in black is basically trying to encourage her to go ahead and use the rifle to shoot herself and kill herself. And we see Ramona really struggling with this. Um, she finally manages to start to get through it and put the rifle down. And when she does, her children return. They've come back to check on her, and they have the dog. So we see that the dog is fine. The kids are there. Um, I believe. I think the dog was there. Now I'm kind of drawing a blank. I think the dog was with them. I just watched this a couple of days ago. Yeah, sorry, drawing a blank there. But the woman in black disappears. The children ask Ramona if the woman in black will come back, and Ramona says she doesn't know, but if she does, she'll be ready. And so that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, that's a very short review of this film, but I think this is a very, very powerful movie. And, as I talked in the beginning about this film being a little different to me and being surprised that I hadn't heard a lot of people say too many good things about this film. And let me kind of elaborate on why that is, because this movie has a feel to it. If you've listened to me before and you know me, I'm such a slasher fan. I love slashers, and I also like shark movies and things like that. Zombie movies are good. These movies that are more psychological, I guess is a word that I could use. Um, I'm always not a fan of. I'm not really a fan of slow burns, although I don't really consider this movie a slow burn because it doesn't have a long runtime. Um, but I say all that to say this movie has a feel of a movie that I might not be a fan of, a movie that I could see similar things that I have not enjoyed as much. And it also seems to me like a movie when I look at it and look at some of the twists here and there. And again, I look at the performance of Danielle Deadweiler. It feels like a movie to me that would be one of those that a lot of people absolutely love, and I'm like, it was okay. That's just the feeling that I get from this film. But it almost seems like it's the exact opposite. I found myself I really liked this movie. Um, on my scale, just to kind of go ahead and get that part out of the way, on my scale of 1 to 10, I mean, did I love this movie? No, I didn't love it. It's not a great movie. I wouldn't give it a rating of a 10, 9, even an 8 probably. But it was a good movie, a really good movie. I think I would probably give The Woman in Black on a scale of 1 to 10. I would say a 7 out of 10 for me on this one. I do like this film, and that's what just that's kind of the thing is. Well, I said it has a feel to it that it would be one that a lot of other people would love, and I wouldn't be much into. It seems like it's the exact opposite. I like this movie. I thought it was pretty good. I liked the message of this film, and I'm going to get into that here in just a minute. Um, but again, I haven't heard too many other people say good things about this movie. A few here and there, but I've heard a lot of other people that it just didn't land with, and they didn't like it. I've heard some people completely trash it. Everyone seems to agree that Danielle Deadweiler did a good job, but that's really about it, as far as other people are concerned. But I like this film, and I think this movie resonates with me because, as I said at the beginning, mental health is incredibly important to me. I'm older. I'm 53 years old, and I grew up in a time where mental health wasn't talked about, where you didn't, for the most part, you didn't share that you were struggling. You didn't share that you were hurting. We certainly didn't have, taking days off work for mental health. You sucked it up and moved on. That's the way you did it. Yeah, life was hard. This is it. Deal with it. Um, I was given that advice sometimes when I was younger. This is the way it is. You got to accept it. You got to, pick yourself up and keep going. And you do. I'm not saying that those things aren't true, but we just weren't as aware, I think, of mental health as much as a society as we have become. And I will admit, again, being older and being raised in that generation, when things like when mental health became started being talked about more and more, and people were taking days off work for their mental health. Initially, I was one of those people that was like, what the hell, we didn't do this when I was growing up. We didn't need these things. We didn't take mental health days. You went to work. You picked yourself up and got dressed and went. You did things. You did what you had to do, and you didn't talk about it. You didn't open up to people. You didn't express what you were going through. You certainly didn't share your hurts with people and be open about how you felt. Um, so initially, when that kind of started in today's world, um, I didn't get it. But as someone who has struggled in their life at different stages with depression, I think it's something that I wish. Looking back now, I really, really wish that we could have been a little smarter about those things back in my younger days. I wish that it was something that we were more aware of and could deal with better back then, because I think it could have made a huge difference in my life and in other people's life that I know. I think it could have been a huge, huge difference. So I think this movie resonates with me. I mentioned there's a line in this film where the woman in black states to Ramona, "Don't you wish one time that somebody else could be strong and you could take a break?" And that statement resonates with me, and I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people out there. I have found myself at times wishing those very things, probably saying those very things that I wish somebody else could step up. I wish for a moment somebody else could be the strong one. I wish for a moment somebody else could carry the load and I could take a break. Um, the scenes where, the scene that I talked about where Ramona's asking for strength, and we think initially that she's asking for strength to get through the day, and we find out later that she was wanting strength to be able to go through with and to kill herself. Um, I will, a pretty open guy, and I'm doing much better now. So I don't want anyone to think that I still find myself in that situation. But I went through a time in my life not long ago where I felt that way, where I was ready to commit suicide. I was ready to end my life. I just wasn't strong enough to do it. Yeah, I just didn't have the strength to go through with it, basically. And so seeing that in this film resonates with me. I mention all these things not because I want to bring attention to myself in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, I'm doing much better. But I think that's why I like this movie as much as I do, because I do think this movie hits home. I think that this movie could have one of two effects on people that have gone through these things. I think that if you're still in a place where you're pretty weak in your and struggling, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not saying weak is bad. I'm saying you're still in a place where you're really struggling mentally and still dealing with some of those things. This movie might could be triggering. At the same time, I feel like if you're someone that has turned a corner and started to improve where your mental health is concerned, this movie is going to resonate and it's going to hit home, and you're going to be able to relate to it, especially the end where Ramona doesn't give in, where she doesn't commit suicide, where she does keep going. I feel like those things could resonate and stand out to you and mean something. And I think that's part of the reason why I enjoy this film as much as I do. Again, I think Danielle Deadweiler's performance is absolutely incredible. I think she does a fantastic job. Um, I think the movie has some intense moments, um, possibly for some people, even some scary moments. Some of those scenes, maybe in the attic, that kind of thing. There's a slight uncomfortableness at times in this film, much more towards the end, I feel like, when you finally realize what was going on. And I sometimes think that, uh, or in some ways, maybe I should say, I think this movie hasn't been um, a big hit is because of some of those things. That because maybe the people that are watching it, it's just it's not for them. It's not resonating with them. It's not hitting that spot with them because maybe they haven't struggled with some of these things. Maybe some of the people that um, have are watching this and it's a little triggering or it's a little frustrating, and they don't want to speak out about those kind of things. Um, and both of those are understandable. That's fine. But I think I like this movie for a few reasons. But one of them being that because I can relate. Uh, you know, no, I wasn't driving a car in an accident and someone being killed, but I can relate to the depression. I can relate to being so low and so down and feeling like you can't take anymore and you want it to be over. I can relate to those things. I've been there in my life. And had to take medication, had to see a therapist, had to go through some things and battle some things and learn some things to deal with anxiety and depression and things like that. And again, don't worry about me. I'm all right. I'm in a better place. But I have been there, and so this film really resonates with me, and I think that's a lot of reason why. Um, I hope that we can continue as a society to become more aware of mental health. Um, I hope that we can continue to become more accepting of people needing a break sometimes because of mental health. Uh, I hope as a society we can become less judgmental and less critical of people who are going through some things. One of the things that always bothered me, and I really, like I said, I wasn't sure how this episode was going to go, but one of the things that always bothered me, I sometimes think we're so careless with the words that we speak because, I remember going through some things and being at that stretch in my life where um, I just wanted the strength, kind of like Ramona. And I would hear people make comments like, um, to how selfish it was to commit suicide, or how much of a coward you were if you committed suicide. And look, I'm not going to take this and run with those statements, but I'm going to say, for someone that is dealing with those things, to someone that is at the end of the rope and feels like they can't go on, those kind of comments do not help. They make things worse. It's incredibly unthoughtful to say something like that to someone who is struggling. Um, and just to be more accepting in general. I think, I've heard people talk about how uh, maybe some people were raised with tough love, and that's the way, because they were raised that way, that's the way they treat other people. I mean, okay, we were all raised differently. I'm not going to weigh in on whether that's right or wrong, but I will say, from experience, when someone is at that point, when someone's at the point where they're ready to where they just want it to all be over, and you've got someone else trying to express to them in a tough love way that they need to snap out of it. I know for me that didn't help. And I went through those moments. I had that happen. I had moments where I absolutely did not want to be here, and had people try to use tough love and tell me, this is the way life is. You got to get it together. You need to snap out of this, get out of bed, go do something, go to work, exercise, all these different things that they would tell you to do. And I'm not saying that any of those things are bad advice, but in the way that it was told to me just made me feel even worse, because I was at a point where I thought that no one cared. And that just felt like even more. No one's sympathetic to what I'm dealing with. It just made it even harder. And so I hope as a society we can get better about that. I hope that we can continue to get better in mental health awareness, and truly trying to help people with those issues, and truly trying to be there uh, for people that are going through these things. Um, Sometimes you don't need to say anything, you just need to listen. Um, and so maybe that is why this movie resonates so much with me. I told you at the beginning I wasn't sure how this was going to go, and I might I might go down a rabbit trail, and that's kind of what this has been. So I hope this didn't deter anyone from continuing to watch my channel and follow along and that kind of thing. This is just a very important subject matter to me, and I think that this is a big reason why this movie stands out to me. So that's my opinion of The Woman in the Yard. Um, I'm gonna say 7 out of 10. I'm tempted to go up even a little bit higher, but right now I'm gonna say 7 out of 10. This movie could go up as I watch it more, because I will watch this movie again. I don't own this film as of right now, but I will purchase it. This is one I would like to add to my collection. So yeah, that's my opinion on The Woman in the Yard, and I'm curious as to what you think. I want to know your thoughts on this film, and even your thoughts on mental health. Feel free to share those with me as well. Like I said, I've been there. I totally understand. So if you're not a subscriber already, again, I hope this doesn't deter you from becoming one. Please hit that subscribe button. Please like the video, interact with me, leave me some comments. I do so much appreciate that. If you are a subscriber, I hope this didn't cause you to unsubscribe. But I know these are touchy subjects, and I try to avoid that kind of thing on my channel. But once in a while, it happens, and today was one of those days. So thank you so much for watching. Follow me on social media. I'm on pretty much everything out there: Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, X. I have a letterbox, so you can pretty much find me just by searching Sean's Horror Corner. There are X, I believe it's My Horror Corner. So but I think if you type in Sean's Horror Corner, it'll still get to me. So follow me on social media. I do try to follow back as much as possible. Again, hit the like button, leave me some comments. Please subscribe to the channel. I will be back in a few days to talk about the movie Fall from 2022, and yeah, and then next week we've got some really cool stuff. I'm going to have some guests back on next week. So yeah, some great things coming to the channel, and I hope you'll be a subscriber and follow along with me. Until then, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon.